You all are the ones that brung me to the dance, as they say in my old neighborhood. I am, when I started off in Delaware as a 29-year-old kid running for the United States Senate, I wasn't old enough to be sworn in when I got elected. I had to wait. But then I was in a right-to-work state. I ran because I believe very strongly that the only power we have to push back against the greed that's out there in corporate America are unions. There's no malarkey. It's serious. And my state was a right-to-work state when I started. Folks, you're the only ones that keep the barbarians at the other side of the gate. It's all about power. The neighborhoods I come from in Scranton, Pennsylvania, I was raised by a grandpop and a family that was all about how the wealthy kind of looked down their nose at us, and coal miners. I wasn't a coal miner. My dad was a white-collar worker when everything went south in Scranton and coal died. My dad had to leave Scranton. Although, because I'm going to say something outrageous, because I'm pretty popular in Pennsylvania, and Trump went up to Scranton in that northeast area, which votes Republican, except when I'm on the ticket, not a joke. And he said, you know, you all like Joe Biden. Let me tell you something about Joe Biden. He left you. He left you. He doesn't care about you. It's true. I was in 3rd grade. And I apologize to all my human buddies up there that I didn't stay and say, Dad, leave me here. I'm going to take care of this. But all kidding aside, folks, that, I won by a little over 3,200 votes. But I won because every labor union in the state endorsed me. And Nixon won my state by 68% of the vote, and I still won by 3,000 votes. And I won it because of organized labor. And I don't know if you guys know, I know now, East Coast, West Coast union, longshoremen have a little bit of difference on some things. But the fact of the matter is that we still have, in my state of Delaware, we have a really strong longshoremen's organization, the Port of Delaware. And it's the place where I got most of my support. My state has the 8th largest black population in the United States of America, and it was labor in the African American community that elected me and continues to elect me back there. But look, guys, I'm not joking when I say that, the fact is that without labor, we're in trouble. We're in desperate trouble. Not a joke. I'm not trying to be nice to you. And, in my neighborhood, you either became one of two things. You joined a union, you became a cop, or you became a priest. I wasn't qualified for any one of them, so I ended up doing what I did. But the fact is that we're in a situation right now where there's been a war declared on Labor's house for the last 15 years. And it's been declared, and it's heavy. It's all about making sure that the only countervailing force that exists in America to deal with corporate greed is in fact unions. Nobody else. Now you guys have been strong and powerful, but when you sit across the table, from a business agent, I wonder whether you look at them and they look at you and you think they really respect you. Well, where I come from, they don't a whole lot. And we have to increase the power of unions. 2 things that I want to mention, and I'll get into your specific issues that you want to ask me about. Number 1 is that when the National Labor Relations Act was passed, everybody talks about it like it was saying it allows unions. That's not what it said. It said the government should promote unions. Promote unions. Promote them. Because it understood that Wall Street didn't build this country. Middle-class Americans did, and labor built the middle class. There would be no middle class without labor. That's not hyperbole. That's not a joke. That's a fact. What we haven't done is we haven't worked to increase unions. We're getting killed. Nationwide, you guys are strong, but nationwide, we're down to 6%. 6% of non-public unions, only 6% of labor is organized. When I got started, It was 35%. 35%. And here's the deal, guys. We're in a situation where unless we fight back and organize better nationally across the board, we're in trouble. And you all are incredibly powerful. Not just this union, but think about it. But people are, tomorrow, if every Wall Street banker went on strike, left, stopped doing what they're doing, nothing would change. But if tomorrow, every piece of cargo on the back of a ship stopped dead in the water, the world would come to close to an end. Not a joke. You have enormous power. Enormous power. Now, just with the IBW, totally different outfit. But if all of a sudden they said we ain't going to be out there in a storm, guess what? We're all done. Nothing. But we don't pay enough attention to how much power we have. And that's why I think the laws have to change in terms of how we deal with the power that's constantly trying to be eroded with you all. That's why we need the PRO Act. That's why we need to have a circumstance where, in fact, you know, last year, and it crosses the board, last year, corporate America spent $1 billion. You're already fully organized. They can't do anything about it. But they spent $1 billion trying to curtail organizations, organized labor, preventing from them even have a union. And how many of you know where there's a union comes about and they just don't negotiate then? End up having an agreement, you organize, whether it's through card check or whatever other means, and they just don't meet. They don't negotiate with you. Well, the things I want to see happen, and I promise you I'll get it done if I'm President of the United States, is they're going to be held accountable. Not just for a fine to their corporation, because some of these are multi-billion-dollar operations and fining the taxpayer has no impact on them. I want to hold accountable the management that's responsible for the interruption with labor's ability to organize. And secondly, I think in those, if they engage in not acknowledging the effect of the organization, they should be able to be held criminally liable. If tomorrow we found out here in San Francisco there was involvement in trying to prevent people from being able to vote in a polling place, it's not a fine. You're held liable, criminally liable. I don't think we fight back hard enough, with all due respect, across the board. And you guys are different because you had a guy back in, what, 34, 35, who had, I won't use the phrase women in the room, but had some nerve. You know, you are where you are. But there's a lot of things I assume you want to talk about. Everything from the Jones Act all the way through to what we're going to do about dealing with, I assume you are, if it's like any other longshoremen's group I've met with, everything from that all the way to dealing with whether or not we're going to be in a position where, you know, they're going to be able to avoid showing up in a U.S. port for a product destined for here and take it to Mexico or Canada and come down by rail. One of the things we did was in our administration is, you remember, the Obama-Biden administration, we backed you. We backed you. I was in charge of the Recovery Act, which had about $1 billion in it that related to infrastructure. We put $400 million out here in the West Coast. We made that new green highway that takes vehicles and tractor trailers off the road and puts them in the back of your ships and goes up and down the West Coast. There's a lot of other things we've done. But I know there's differences. I know there's subtle and significant differences sometimes. You all think, with some good reason, that we in fact spend your money on ports in the East. And in fact, we have a big issue we got to talk about in terms of mechanization, this fourth industrial revolution, robots, all, you know, the McKinsey report that comes out and says just because you use IT, it doesn't, you know, that in fact it doesn't make the port better, it doesn't make it more efficient. That should be part of the negotiating piece you guys are able to make judgments on. So anyway, I should hush up and take your questions. But the bottom line here is, in order for there to be the ability, if you go back to your old neighborhoods, folks who aren't longshoremen, you're not making 15 bucks an hour, you're making a good wage, and you deserve every damn penny you make. But guess what? Go back to your old neighbors. A lot of people thought they're middle class are in real trouble. They're in real trouble today because of this economy, because of the way we screw around with everybody, because of the way if the average person from a middle class family, according to every study, including from the Heritage Foundation and the conservative studies, show if you got a bill for 400 bucks in 1 month, you wouldn't be able to pay it. You didn't expect it. You'd have to borrow money or sell something. That's not why I got involved in politics. I didn't get involved in politics, as I used to say, in the state of DuPont, Delaware, where they owned everything. They didn't need me to protect their interest. The people who needed me to protect their interest are the people who have to fight like hell for an even shot. They're the ones, and they're getting hurt. They're getting hurt across the board. Now, I'm sure some of you support Trump. Well, you're crazy bastards, but you But folks, there's a lot to talk about. I'm sorry, I have a bet. No one's ever doubted I mean what I say. Problem is, I sometimes say all that I mean. But I'm not joking, folks. You are an incredibly powerful element in allowing us to be in a position where you can better the lives of a whole heck of a lot of people. Whether you're in a warehouse, whether you're on a dock, or whether you're in this office building. It doesn't matter. You can have significant influence. The whole thing is to keep that from being eroded and strengthen it. So why don't I be quiet, and with your permission, can I take my coat off?
Sure, please.
And I'll be happy to try to answer your questions.
And we got